way we consume and share news today, it is largely rooted in social media outlets. The reason why I decided it's crucial to look at what's being discussed online, from the hottest issues to trends for our daily social media minute. We're joined by Erica in the studio. Good morning.
Hi.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Looking sharp with her scarf. Look at that.
I tried.
Is it supposed to be a distraction?
A little bit. It makes me feel better.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
That's why I get up early to do my hair. It's like if I have a decent hair day, it feels like I'm getting the right start.
You know, I'm always impressed by Lena's hair.
Just hair.
It's impeccable.
Nothing else.
Not just hair.
Just hair.
You do it every morning.
TMI, I've been wearing the same shirt maybe 3 times this week. All right, let's jump in. Our social media minute, we're going to try to look at some of these buzzwords trending as we speak. Speaking of easing travel restrictions for international arrivals starting this month, it's to start come next week.
That's right. More than 2 years after the start of the pandemic, South Korea is getting ready to make traveling much easier for international visitors. So starting March 21st, travelers who have been fully vaccinated overseas and registered their vaccination history with South Korea's Q-Code website will be able to enter the country without a 7-day quarantine period. Now, this is huge.
I think it's monumental. We're not just talking about people who are coming in as tourists for business arrivals. This is all really important because 7-day quarantines is what makes it impossible to travel anywhere.
That's right. So travelers arriving by plane will need to show proof of a negative PCR coronavirus test taken no more than 48 hours before departure. Children under the age of 6 do not need a coronavirus test to enter.
So they're really relaxing those travel restrictions for any arrivals. To be considered fully vaccinated, for the record, travelers must complete a 2-dose vaccine series at least 14 days before their trip.
That's right. And a 1-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine will also be accepted. Now, if more than 180 days have passed since a traveler completed their initial vaccination series, they will need a booster shot to be considered fully vaccinated. Now, starting on April 1st, even those who have been fully vaccinated abroad but have not registered their vaccination history with South Korea will be exempted from the 7-day quarantine as well.
All right. Notice that there is quite a bit of time between March 21st and April 1st. So if you're making your trip in the next few weeks, be wary of that. The global travel industry, we've been talking about it the entire pandemic, right? Hospitality, restaurants, you just name it. Any attached industries to travel have seen just the worst of it. And we are hoping that this alleviates the situation just a little bit, but we also have to be mindful of what's happening. We're experiencing our worst coronavirus surge with record pandemic-related deaths recorded this week.
I mean, you just talked about this with Adam earlier, but according to Reuters, South Korea currently leads the rest of the world in average daily new infections.
There you go. When I saw that number 1, I thought that can't be right.
I know,
but
right?
It's right. With the skyrocketing daily cases, also number of deaths and critical ill patients have been skyrocketing.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the number of tourists that visited Korea last year and maybe compare with the number pre-pandemic.
Yeah, let's do that. According to the Korea Tourism Organization, the number of visitors coming to Korea last year was 967,000. Only 210,000 entered the country for tourism purposes. Okay. Now compare that number to 2019, before the pandemic started. More than 17 million foreigners visited Korea. So again, the numbers, 967,000 last year and 17 million back in 2019.
I don't even have to do the math. It's just a fraction of the arrivals we used to have pre-pandemic.
And here's the thing. Before the spread of COVID-19, the government had a grand plan. And that plan was to attract 20 million foreign visitors to Korea. But that, of course, never materialized due to the onset of the pandemic.
Seriously, what's in a number? I mean, you promised 20 million and certainly hopes run really high. And I can imagine people starting businesses hoping that, Korean contents, K-pop, and all this attraction to bring in tourists would last. Now, the travel industry has tried again and again to recover, but of course to no avail. I mean, if you're limiting people from coming in, how could you bounce back? When the borders are blocked, there isn't much you can do as a business owner, right?
No.
The number of foreigners visiting Korea saw an unprecedented drop, as we mentioned, while demand for overseas travel also collapsed. The entire market was shaken, and it really hasn't recovered.
Yes, during the pandemic, South Korea remained closed to much of the world, but it did previously open vaccinated travel lanes with Singapore for quarantine-free travel. In that case, vaccinated travelers had to arrive with a negative PCR test taken within 48 hours of their departure, and they had to take another PCR test 6 to 7 days after their arrival and purchase travel insurance.
It was really complicated, and you're making people go through hoops just to be in the country for, 2 weeks tops. South Korea joins countries all around the world in easing their border restrictions because it seems other countries share similar sentiments.
That's right. Just last month, Australia began welcoming international tourists. New Zealand plans to open its borders to the world in May. Again, this is huge because New Zealand pretty much closed their borders all throughout the pandemic.
That's why they were safe.
Yes, exactly. Now, several other countries have done away with pandemic-related border restrictions completely, including Ireland and Iceland.
All right. On to the next. The emotional reunions are apparently a subtopic that we want to cover, but this one I think takes a cake for the time being. British-Iranian charity worker released after 6 years. That's right, 6 years detention in Iran.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about this because it was everywhere on the news yesterday. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, she had been held in Iran for almost 6 years, and she was released, and she's back home with her family in the UK.
And her kid is just shown saying, "Are you really my mom?" And if you don't, shed a tear for that. I don't know. The story was everywhere yesterday, as Erica's mentioned. There was also this viral video of a TV newscaster sharing the story, and she was visibly emotional.
Yeah, she had a hard time telling the story. She got all choked up. Now, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has hailed the release as huge achievements for British diplomacy, and he thanked everyone who has worked relentlessly to secure her release over the last 6 years. Now, the news comes together with an announcement that the UK had settled a decades-old debt that it owed to Iran, amounting to $524 million, which Iran's foreign minister has denied was linked to the prisoner's release.
Okay.
But the debt is for undelivered armored vehicles and tanks originally ordered by Iran, but it was canceled by the UK in response to the Iranian Revolution of 1979.
All right. So then what kind of explanation did Iran offer for handing over finally this charity worker over, this UK government, right?
Yeah, it didn't really offer too many details, actually. The country's semi-official Fars news agency said she was being transferred to the international airport in Tehran with a British negotiating team. And another detained British-Iranian, Anusha Shuri, was also released and has arrived in the UK as well.
Okay, we might not necessarily get all the details of what was a back and forth to end
what happened behind doors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We weren't invited to those meetings, weren't we? But this must be such a relief for her family. I mean, we're actually focusing more on that humanitarian angle. Her husband fought relentlessly to secure her release over these years.
Yeah, her husband, Richard Ratcliffe, said the release of his wife means that they can finally start being a normal family again. I mean, where do you pick up the pieces, right?
6 lost years.
Yes, exactly. Now, as you can imagine, and you mentioned there were some happy faces waiting for her arrival at the airport, including her daughter, who was just 22 months old at the time when she was arrested back in April of 2016. Now she is 8 years old.
I don't know, we throw out words like normal, like it doesn't mean anything, but what's happening in Ukraine, it's a little bit hard for us to process, right?
Yes, that's right.
The story from her initial arrest to her release this Wednesday is harrowing, actually.
Yes, Zaghari-Ratcliffe, for those of you who did not read the latest news, she was first detained in Iran in April of 2016. She'd gone on a vacation to see her family with her daughter, and she was accused of working with organizations, allegedly attempting to overthrow the Iranian regime, and she was later convicted and sentenced to 5 years in jail. And her employer, the Thomson Reuters Foundation, have repeatedly, along with herself, denied the espionage charges against her. And she's undertaken several hunger strikes during her detention. One of them in a desperate bid to seek medical treatment. She had lumps in her breasts and she had numbness in her limbs. And her husband also has also carried out hunger strikes in solidarity with his wife.
I can't even begin to process this story, right? I mean, you choke up a little bit reading this morning too.
Of course.
All right, so that's... I'm sure we'll be getting some updates from the family, how well they're doing, and I expect a lot of interviews too. On to our third story, into our culture sector. Finally, the moment has come, the moment of truth for Pachinko's TV adaptation to see the light of day.
Well, March 25th is the big day. It's going to be released. 3 episodes in total will be released on that day.
Right.
And all the way until April 29th, 1 episode is going to be released every Friday.
Okay.
Yes. So reviews have been pouring in for this Apple TV Plus series. And so far, so great, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of positive reviews, like The Atlantic, Pachinko, moving, sublime.
Yes, exactly. This is an 8-part series. It's a massive global project involving 3 languages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, some are already hailing the show as becoming the second Minari. Yes,
okay,
exactly. So Rolling Stone, for example, said the show is magnificent. Other reviews include one of the best things on TV. Technically impressive on all levels, visually stunning, music score by Nico Muli, a knockout. The reviews just go on, so you can go check that out online.
I mean, the novel when it was released was sensational, to say the least. It dates back a few, because I grew up on it. So I was much younger when I first came across Pachinko, and from what little I understand, it's about this Korean family that moves to Japan, and of course, in 20th century Japan, the Korean family must face all kinds of discrimination. And so it's about powering through those odds.
That's right.
And the difficulties of families face.
Of course. I don't want to give too much away because the release is very soon.
That's true.
The series sees multi-generational characters and they're navigating the loss of their national and cultural identity amid Japanese colonialism in the early 20th century. And the story has been adapted by Soo Hyu from Lee Min-jin's novel of the same title. And the critics say that the historical epic is detailed, artfully staged, and the story alternates between 3 time periods, actually.
All right.
It juxtaposes the present with memories of a family's experience across generations.
As for the TV adaptation, it doesn't hurt that Yoon Ya-jung and Lee Min-ho takes front and center.
That's right.
I think we've run out of time, unfortunately. I do apologize, Erica.
No, that's okay.
Eventually, we'll get to all 4 stories. But have a safe weekend.
You too.
And I'll see you next week. If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.